Good evening. Could you please all share, folks, please? You're best off either jumping on my YouTube channel, which is Demo Welshman, or jumping on Live News and Demo News, the page. I'll get to see all your comments then, folks. Yeah, welcome. It's been an interesting weekend. From Friday onwards, I went to Manchester, which took a 7-hour drive, which normally takes me 4 hours, folks. And then I went from Manchester then to London on Sunday, and then I went back to Birmingham after that. So it was a pretty interesting weekend. I interviewed the Tent City. There was a few of us outside of Manchester, BBC, the Media City. That was pretty interesting as well. Also, obviously, I went to Speaker's Corner, and that was a bit scary at times, considering what happened the week before. But I'll explain all that when we go through the show. First of all, I'm going to bring on Alan Merritt. He's actually a founder of Beach Home, the group on Facebook. He's one of the top children activists in the country, and I'll bring him on now, I think. Welcome, Alan. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
How was your weekend? Did you do much?
I didn't do a lot this weekend because I was in where was I last? I think I was in is it Manchester or London? I can't remember where I am. I'm all over the place like you. I don't think I'll get about as much as you, but I'm in London this Saturday for the Gurkhas. And showing my support for the Gurkhas and basically representing Beach Home survivors, and just showing some kindred support for the guys that are doing this brave thing, really.
Right, yeah. If you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself, about Beach Home, and what your connection is to it, that would be great.
So I was placed in children's homes at virtually birth age, and I managed over the years in my struggle and my campaigning to get my birth records and my care records with a huge struggle. You know, even though redacted, lost, years missing from my files, it kind of tells a bit of a story, but not the truth of to what happened in abusive childcare. And so between 0 ages and 6, I was moved into 4 or 5 children's homes. Not that I knew much about them. One of them was Aylesfield House, another was Oakley Street, all sort of London area, because I was born in the Hammersmith area, and the Hammersmith and Fulham Council were my birth borough. But yeah, we was put in sort of like respite care, but my home life was very abusive as well, because my dad used to beat me at 4 years of age with a leather belt, and our mother used to hit us with stiletto heels and hits in the head with stiletto heels, and
that's what my mother used to do with me.
And it was very abusive. And I had 2 sisters and another brother, and we all shared the same bedroom. We wouldn't go downstairs to the basement at night, because all you hear was the screeching of the rats in the basement, because we used to get these sewer rats get in the basement where they used to put the coal, the tunnels, and they used to come through where the coal chutes were. And these things were the biggest things you've ever seen in your life. And you could hear them scratching at the door at night, and we were just petrified. So yeah, it was tough. I remember the trams are still in London. Goldhawk Road, I think, was the last place for the trams to go in London. I remember the smog. Yeah, it was. And as I say, a life in between going into care, because we were sort of like hanging around pubs all the time, because Mum and Dad were more or less alcoholics, and every penny that they got, they would spend in the boozer, and we would just roam the streets, and the streets were our playgrounds. And they'd come out every now and then with probably a glass of lemonade and a packet of crisps, and that was your drink and nourishment. And the streets, as you say, was your playground, so you had to make your own entertainment. Yeah, so it was very, and court orders got taken out and us to places in care. We were in one house in Mardell Street, and there's a pub, and I think it's still there, and it's still very famous, and it's to do with Shepherd's Bush and Shepherd's Bush Green, and I think it's called the something Flock and Shepherd, I believe, in Goldhawk Road, and I think it's still there, and it goes back to quite a long way. It's about 100-year-old pub, but I remember then where we were in the pub one day and come back, and the fire engines were all outside the house, and it was water all. I remember the water all over the thing. Our house got burned down because our mother left the oven on, and it burnt the house down while she was in the pub. So they put us into care for that. That was one reason why we went into care. One of the reasons. And I remember, the only thing I remember about that young age is that I had this tortoise, and you used to pull the string and its front and back legs used to move backwards and forwards. It's the only toy I remember. And I remember the plates being really black. And then they put us into this place called Stowe Road where the rats were. And in between that, we was in and out of just different children's homes. And I don't remember too much about the children's homes, you know, sort of like my very young years. But I remember at 6 years of age, I was taken to Marylebone Magistrates Court, and a judge looked down at me and he said, "Would you like to go to the seaside, sonny boy?" Well, I'd never been to the seaside, but you're looking up, and I'm looking up at this judge, and behind the judge, the lion, the crown, and the unicorn, and I'm looking up, I'm trying to work out what this unicorn was. I've never seen anything like it, and what's that horse got a horn out of his head? I wasn't educated or anything. So I'm looking at this, 6 years of age, and next thing I know, I've got taken by Black Maria to a very abusive children's home called Beach Home in Banstead, Surrey. So the seaside was nowhere near Beach Home. When I got out of the van, I was just running up and down the avenues looking for the sea. Where's the sea? Where's the sea? And kids said, you know, we're near the sea. Well, you know, Brighton is probably the nearest place to where we were in Banstead, Beach Home. But I kind of got taken into offices where I was basically weighed up and down, and what's the word I'm looking for? Evaluated, or you know, evaluated, and whatever the case might be. And they took me to stores, and I had to take all my own clothes off, and I had to put these shorts on. And I didn't want to put these shorts on. And all the clothes had your label. You was labelled with all this, the name of Beach Home, a white label in the back of your clothes, and red sewn of Beach Home, BEECHHOLME. So it was like the tree of beech, and it was actually lined by 100-year-old beech trees. So one avenue, well, yeah, the top end and the bottom end, and they were lined by beech trees. And there was 24 cottages in Beach Home, and they were all named after trees, like laburnum, larch, ash, beech, carrier, drake, maple, thistle, elm, laburnum, larch, jasmine, and so on and so forth. And they took me to, after I was processed, basically, and got these clothes that they give me in. And I don't think I wore shorts. I don't remember having shorts, and I didn't like them. You know, I wanted my own clothes back, but they put me in these kind of like ish uniformish type of grey trousers, and just, I don't know, like use one of the pinstripe for children, you know, like the pajama children, and it took me to a house called Laburnum, which had a yellow door. And I remember because the laburnum tree was outside on the left. And I went in the front door. And it was the only time I went in the front door. We was told never, ever allowed to go into the front door. You always have to use the back door. You have to come in the back door. Children are not allowed to use the front door. And this woman, I remember, she was looking down at me like that over her glasses. And if I was to say to you, she looked the splitting image of Hilda Ogden out of Coronation Street. Her name was Grace Robinson, and we all called her Granny Grace. And she had these rollers in her hair, just like Hilda Ogden used to. She had these glasses where she used to look down at you, and she had this penny like Hilda Ogden had this penny type thing on. And she introduced us to a Welsh woman, which was her assistant, called Audrey Wilson. And Audrey Wilson was a very, very thick, big woman, large woman, thick-set woman. And she was one of my abusers. And I was told this, that, and the other by them, and I was more interested in wanting to find out where the sea was than anything they were saying to me. So they got the kids to show me around the backyard, the dormitories, and saying, this is the boys' dormitory. You don't go down there. That's the girls' dormitory. You don't use the bathroom upstairs. It's the staff bathroom. You don't use the toilet upstairs. It's the staff toilet. You go downstairs. There was 2 cast iron baths downstairs, which turned out to be one of my worst nightmares. And I just got shown around basically by the kids and something like that. But I was looking for the sea, and the kids said, "You're not near the sea. You're nowhere near. You're landlocked, basically. You're nowhere near the sea." And that was the start of a nightmare. And I remember we were sitting at the table having some food, and this food was shit, and it was horrible what they served us up. And I'm trying to get used of like 5 or 6 kids sitting around a table, and there was 3 or 4 tables in the dining room, come living room, and on wooden tables, wooden chairs with the spokes, and sitting out trying to look out the window to see what's going on about me. I'm more interested in my surroundings and finding out what I am and where I am. And the railway station used to run the back out of the yards. You had the yards, and then you had some grass, and then you had a sort of like the workmen or the tradesmen used to use this road at the back of there to go to the bottom field, and to the offices where they used to and the trade job where they used to have various bits and pieces. But yeah, we was told you can't do this, you can't do this, you can do this, and you come in it, get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you have to be downstairs by whatever time, or just after 7. And we used to go into downstairs where the bathrooms were. There was a regimental row of sinks, and then you had like a beaker, and they used to put a plaster on the beaker, and your name would be written on that beaker in ink, and then that would be put there. The same on your toothbrush, they put a plaster, but all your clothes, your flannels, your towels, everything, you was labelled. You became labelled as an orphan, basically. And it was the start of a very abusive. She was very slap happy, Grace Robinson, and she wouldn't think twice about slapping you around the head. And I think sometimes it used to grab hold you by the collar, and it used to hold you in a kind of position and slap your legs. And I used to think that they used to put you in the shorts so they could punish you with slapping you on the backs of the legs. And that's the reason why my legs used to be red raw. What the slaps they used to get, and I used to get a whack round the ear roll. And when they say to you, if you ever got a whack round the head when you was a child, if they catch you on the back of the neck or something like that, it really does sting. Or round the ear roll, it really does hurt. And that's what it was like, daily slaps, kicks, pushes. It was very abusive. And it was sometimes good to go outside, because when you was outside, you was away from all that. And at bath times, we had to use these big cast iron baths to have a bath. And I remember they used to come in, the staff used to come in while he was bathing, and as punishment, because I didn't toe the line. I must admit, I was a bit of a naughty boy, and I didn't like being told, and I was a bit of a rebellious type of guy. And they used to use this stuff called carbolic soap, and they used to scrub the floor with carbolic soap and a floor scrubbing brush. And this floor scrubbing brush was an industrial floor scrubbing brush. The bristles were as hard as anything. and he used to bath you with this scrubbing brush, and often make you a cold baths, and then use it, wash your mouth out with this carbolic soap, and stuck it in my mouth, in my eyes, and used to slap you in the bath, and there used to be more water on the bathroom floor. They used to make you get cold baths. If you didn't eat your food, it was put before you the next day until you ate it. They wouldn't let you have anything else if you didn't like what was being put up in front of you. They'd sometimes make you stand and face the wall for hours on end, and you stood there until you couldn't stand anymore. But it was very, very abusive. And one night I was in the dormitory, and Audrey Wilson came to me in the dormitory, and I remember just sort of like the beech trees that line the avenues. The lights used to flicker, the street lights used to flicker, and you could get a dancing pattern type of thing on the ceiling of the leaves as they moved in the breeze. And then I remember this getting broken by this big woman, Audrey Wilson, leaning over me, and she was putting her hands under the bedclothes and touching me in the dormitory. Well, I'd never experienced anything like this, so I ended up I pissed the bed. Basically, I was so frightened. I wet the bed. I curled into a little ball and went into the corner of the bed, wedged myself into the corner of the bed, and where my window was in the where my bed was in the dormitory, in the boys' dormitory, used to look up, and I could look up the avenue, and I used to remember seeing coaches come into Beecham about 7 o'clock at night, because sometimes when you was younger, they used to put you to bed early, well, quite early, 6, 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And I remember these coaches coming, and they were like sunshine coaches. And I remember seeing the sunshine with the rays off the back of these vans, and children would either come or be taken from over the junior area, and we never saw them kids again. And we don't know what happened to them, where they went, where whatever happened to them. We don't remember seeing them again, and we don't know if it was new children or children moving on. But I don't remember seeing the kids, but I remember the sunshine coaches, and people said they were linked to Jimmy Savile, or it was something to do with a charity or organisation that he ran, because he visited Beecham as well, Jimmy Savile. And anyway, when the morning came from the night me wet in the bed, they called me all the names under the sun, or Audrey Wilson called me a dirty little filthy boy, a retard. This is people that are supposed to be your guardians and have that duty of care of you. And they pulled me out of bed, made me take my sheets downstairs to the bath, ran a cold bath, told me to wash my sheets in the cold bath, and standing there naked while they were slapping me and beating me. And again, using the carbolic soap method, and told me to get into the bath after I'd washed my sheets, and I wasn't allowed to change the water. And yeah, the treatment was really horrible, and the beatings were a regular thing. I remember, I always remember it. I saw my sister, my oldest sister, and there was 5 year difference between my oldest sister. I was the youngest, of 4 siblings. And my sister Anne, she walked up the avenue because she heard that I'd come to Beecham. And I ran from the house straight out the front door to my sister, and I'm grabbing hold of my sister for dear life and saying, "Take me away from me. It's horrible. Take me away, take me away, take me away." And I'm crying my eyes out. And I used to call my sister, because she was my oldest sister and she was more of a carer than anything, I used to call her Mummy Ann. So that was what my name for her was Mummy Ann. And she looked after us when we was at home, and it's surprising what you do, even at the age of 4 or 5, and her being 8, 9, or whatever the case might be. And Grace Robinson came outside and bellowed at my sister, "Get back to your own house, and you better get in here now." And yeah, the things they used to do to you was very, very cruel, and they was just heavy-handed. I went to the primary school from there, called Beecham Primary School, and there was a teacher in there called Mr. Margates, and he used to hit you over the hands with a wooden ruler. I know kids say about these things, but it did actually happen. And he'd whack you around the head, and you wouldn't learn anything. My education suffered because I never learned anything. I was really backward, and but I was almost like malnutrition. I was suffering I was a very, very skinny kid, and my eating, I don't know, it wasn't a eating disorder. It's just the food was that poor and that scarce. You didn't get nice food and didn't get a lot of it. And then Mr. Margates was abusive in the school, and he used to march up and down with his hands behind his back, you know, crisscrossing his back, and he used to sort of like patrol between the desks and the inkwells and march up and down, and he used to put the fear of God into you. And you know, I don't think I learned much at all while I was in his class. And then across the playground there was another unit where there was a guy called Mr. Whiteman. Mr. Whiteman, he'd come up to you in the playground and he'd say to you, "What you got in your pockets, boy?" Well, you got shorts on for a start because that's all they put you in. And you didn't possess anything. You didn't have anything. You didn't have no money. You didn't possess a hanky, I don't think. And he'd rifle his hands through your pockets just to try and touch you up. And, you know, you didn't have nothing in your pockets. And he'd do it in broad daylight in front of all the kids in the, you know, and it was a regular thing. He would do it to all different children. So he was touching up children all the time. And this guy went on to a place called Shirley Oaks. There's another children's home called Shirley Oaks in South London. And a lot of the abusers from Beecham, Clifford Hemp is another abuser at Beecham, went to Shirley Oaks. And the links between Shirley Oaks and Beecham are horrendous. And it was kind of like a paedophile ring that went from different children's homes and took children from different children's homes to different places, i.e. Dolphin Square, the Elms Guest House. And this is how I got to learn about all these different places. Because later on in life, I ended up cabbing in London, and I ended up finding out a lot more about these places. But would if you accepted it as the normal, getting beaten and whacked? And I remember being put in a cottage called Larch, with a guy called Ian McLaren, and he was like a solid, like a shithouse brick wall, an Irish guy, and he was like a rugby player. He was muscly, he was strong, and he used to fucking punch you. He didn't hit you, slap you. He came with punches, and he used to punch you in the stomach, punch you in the head, and beat you. And he used to grab hold of you in a arm lock. And because they used to, after the meals, they used to make you wash up. So you used to go in the kitchen and you used to wash up at the kitchen sink. And each house window faced each other. So basically, you were looking out of the kitchen of one house into the cottage of another house where its kitchen was. And he'd come up and put his arms around you in a headlock and push his body against you, so you was against the cupboards, and he'd rub up against you as you was doing the washing up, and he'd beat you up and throw you on the floor, and he'd jump on your back and he'd rub his genitals on your back and ride you like he was riding a horse. And yeah, he was very, very cruel, and he used to beat the fucking living daylights out of me. He used to literally punched the living daylights out of me, and he hit me once so hard he lifted me off the floor and knocked me into another room. And I remember we had these little Park Cray fires, and the utensils that were by the side of the fire, I picked them up and I threw them at him, and he just ducked and it hit the door, and I didn't care if it took his head off. But he was very, very abusive, and he was still bathing boys at 12 years of age. And then I went from there. I don't know, when I was in Laburnum, the staff said they couldn't handle me, and they used to get other members of staff to come and give me good idings, or sending me to other houses where I'd get good idings. And the thing about this fucking bath, and a lot of the abuse took place in the bathrooms and the dormitories. And all my two sisters were both abused in Beecham. My brother was physically, sexually, and mentally abused, something rotten, and it affected him big time in life. And it almost turned him into a nutter, and he really, really did suffer from it. And it was very harsh treatment. I remember because of my education, I didn't do very well. I ended up going to a place called the Orchard. Now, there was a woman called Nancy Davids that used to teach us, and there was a documentary, and it's on YouTube, called Gal is Dead, and it's about what she did, and she took her own life, and she was in this documentary, Gal is Dead. I think it's nearly 6 parts to Gal is Dead, and the BBC filmed me, but for some reason didn't show the video. But there is another video where you see me when I'm in the Orchard, but it's only a few seconds long, and you see how we used to dress, and if you'd seen the way they dressed us, and Ash, when I was in Ash opposite the church, I was getting a bit older now. If Gordon Reed, he'd punch you around the head, and one day he punched me in the head, and I just turned around and looked at him, and I kind of nearly said, "Is that it, or what are you going to do that hasn't already been done to me? Or you can't hurt me anymore, because I've been hurt so many times and so beaten so many times," and it was the normal. And out of the 24 houses that were in Beecham, I'm not saying that every single one was abusive, but there was a hell of a lot. And then coming later on in life, there is Sue don't like me talking about it, but there were 2 girls that took their life. Whether it was linked to Beecham, or whether it was after Beecham, or whether it was a tributary fact because of what happened to him in Beecham. Jeffrey Banner was the superintendent. I went to the Banstead police station and told him about the treatment I was getting in Laburnum, and I was taken back to Beecham in a Black Maria from the police, and I had to go and see the superintendent, Jeffrey Banner, and he sat me on his knee in a perverse manner and was bouncing me off his knee, and he said, "Little boys like you that tell lies get sent away." And he said, in the corner there was this cane, and he said to me, "Little boys like you get the cane." And he said, "We send little boys like you away." And that was a threat to send us to a place called, I think it was Stanford House. Stanford House was in the bottom of Goldwall Road. And it was quite a very abusive ball store, I believe it was. And they used to threaten you, and if you said anything or did anything, they would either threaten you with incarceration or put you into mental institutions, because like you had police stations, you always had a courthouse next to a police station. With children's homes, inevitably where you had children's homes, you had mental institutions, and a lot of children sometimes got placed or sectioned into mental institutions from children's homes, and it was a very, very abusive time, and I suffered for 25 years. I was in Beecham for 11 years, totaling from the 60s till 72, when I left in 1972, and I got put into a hostel, and ended up fighting all the time in the hostel, got to be a little fucker, and I turned to drink, and I ended up fighting a lot and getting myself into trouble. I ended up sleeping rough on the streets of London, going to soup kitchens at Waterloo and various stations in London, finding my way around, sleeping on park benches in pavilions or gazebo type things in parks, just to get some sleep. And I did a lot of sofa surfing, and people put me up and family put me up, but I lived basically off a settee. I slept on a settee in various different places I was, and I was pushed from London. London was my kind of Beirut. I had a really tough time. I ended up getting myself into a lot of trouble, and in one stage I ended up making sure I got nicked on a Friday, because if I got nicked on a Friday, I would have to go to court to the Monday. So I had Friday night in police cells, Saturday night in the police cells, and Sunday in the police cells.
Yeah.
Just by putting a brick through the window.
Your story is very, very, very similar to mine. And I can remember you telling this story up in Nottingham, and it really upset me. But it's very similar to mine. I spent 4 Christmases when I was young I mean 15, 16, 17 and 18 just to get off the streets to go to prison. And to get away from these care homes, I used to run. I held a record for in the farm for the amount of times I actually run there. And I was only there for 6 months, and I must have run nearly every day I got there. So they had
I
to put
ran around about 3 times from Beecham, and my poor little legs. I went from Beecham once, just left. I couldn't take any more of it, and I went, and I walked all the way from Beecham up to the Brighton Road, walked all the way down and across Banstead Downs, and then I went Sutton, Rosehill, Mitcham. Anyway, I got to Tooting. I was trying to get to Shepherd's Bush. That was where my parents lived. My mum lived. My dad died when I was 10 years of age in Beecham. I never saw my dad ever again when I went into Beecham. So after the beatings and that, and when he was at home and I got beatings and we got put into different children's home, I never had a father again. So I never did see my father again. And you know, sometimes I'm okay at the moment, but sometimes the little boy inside me comes out, and I get quite emotional about it, and it's quite harmful. You know, it's reliving and going through it, or it was very, very abusive, very horrible time for a child. I ended up in every prison in London. I was in Wormwood Scrubs. I was in Wandsworth when you still had to have cold showers. You never had no radios or fuck all like that. It was
plastic.
I've been in Brixton where I've seen guys have boiling hot water and sugar thrown into their faces and scream like a belchy. And I've had fights in prisons in the recesses. Yeah, very tough. I've seen razor blades melted into toothbrushes or plastic. And they used to have a lot of matchsticks, and they used to make tin out of tin boxes. They used to make fag boxes and put a ship or a little door on the tins, and used to make various things, like you could make a lighter out of with a bit of flint. And they used to be very creative with matchsticks. And matchsticks in my day was a thing they used to use as a bargaining tool to sell and buy burn. And we used to have a canteen. We used to have a canteen inside, and I think
we used to cut our matchsticks into 4.
Yeah,
to make them last, obviously, didn't we? That's how we used to razor blades straight down, middle and straight down again.
Yeah.
And,
but
the days you could smoke in prison.
Sorry?
The days you could smoke in prison.
We could smoke. I think. Yeah. We could smoke, because I remember I ended up going to the canteen, and in them days I think you got a quarter of burn. So you got it sliced. I think what I used to do is slice half a quarter ounce. Is it where the small one is, the small thing? And they used to slice it into 3, and you'd get a little bit of that quarter, and you'd give them. That would cost you so much in the canteen because you was only allowed so much, or if you had any funds at all.
If you were on remand, you're allowed money sent in and stuff like that. But
yeah, that's right. In Brixton, I think it was Brixton and Wormwood Scrubs. I could have visits, and people would send stuff in. I remember the guys that used to do the reception areas. I remember having to strip off and take all my clothes off when I went into, I think it was Wandsworth, and I'm standing there stark bollock naked, and they're all staring at me. And some bloke said to me, he said, "You ain't got nothing to worry about." And I thought, well, thank fuck for that. You know, I didn't really want a fucking another man raping me. And I remember we used to use the tobacco to buy a thing called Swoop. The Swoop was the tobaccos when we used to go visiting. They used to get the tobacco and the cigarette stubs and used to put it into a tin, and you could buy that. But then what I found with that, it used to taste like shit, because it was like the end dregs of the fag. And but you'd mix it with a bit of burn to try and make your burn last longer and stretch it out a bit more. But it was very cruel, very harsh. I was just fucking lost. It was like London was my Beirut. I was in the wilderness. I was lost. And I don't know how I managed, because I sat on Watford Junction Station one day, and I saw this express train zooming past, and I wondered if to end it all. And I remember climbing a place called Trellick Tower, which was in Ladbroke Grove Way. And Trellick Tower was huge in them days. It was one of the biggest. And I felt like jumping, but I wasn't brave enough to do it. You know, I was looking for an excuse to get out of what had happened to me, the way I ended up, who I'd become. I had nothing.
Yeah, but you've turned it around. The reason why I turned it around is I did my fourth little stretch. It was a 9 months, and I had a girlfriend at the time. She became pregnant, and I didn't get back into trouble with the police at all afterwards. I went through the care system. I went to 2 assessment centres. I went to 2 different care homes. No, 3, sorry. I went into foster care. And obviously I went through the abuse. I mean, very similar to you. But yeah, the prison, the worst part of the abuse is when I was in prison. But that's another story, and that's something else I'll talk about on a different day. Like, but bringing on to the abuse. Now, I went to Tent City on Saturday, and obviously I wanted to interview. The plan was to interview Luke, but he left on Wednesday.
Yeah,
because he knew it was a demo, and then I just interviewed Anthony. You know, but he says he was abused and all that. But I do believe him. But why was he complicit in letting people, that 18-year-old child get abuse off Luke? I just can't understand it. And why were all the rest standing around? And
I was there not so long ago myself in Manchester and Media City, and I did a couple of lives from Media City. There weren't a big lot of us, but it was the same old campaigners, the legends that we called, you know, that go out all the time, the Jimmy the Hats and the big John Lawrences and the Rita Ricketts and Dave Mack and all the guys that I've known and stood by me since the day I first started speaking and went public at Melanie Shaw rally in Nottingham, and I was invited to Nottingham, and we were letting off fireworks and everything for Melanie Shaw to show her something that she probably hadn't seen or heard for the time she was incarcerated or is still incarcerated. And it was brilliant that people were, it was almost like storming. And I first met Angie and Tinky there, and I got to know some of the guys, and the respect and that these guys have showed me. I've supported other groups since then, gone to other rallies or been invited to rallies with other guys and spoken at a few. And of course, you know about Nottingham, and it made me worse because I actually broke down at Nottingham outside the BBC when I was up there, and then I cried my eyes out. And to encourage me, the crowd was shouting, "Alan, Alan, Alan." And do you know, Phil, that made me worse for the simple reason is that it made me more emotional. That what was I? Who was I? This guy that had come from humble beginnings, and there's guys in their hundreds or thousands shouting my name, and it's something that takes you aback a bit, you know.
Alan, I was filming the whole thing, and like I said, it's very similar to what I went through, mate. And I tell you what, I think the people on the live, they could tell I just kind of broke because of what you were saying. And I know how hard it was for you, mate. Do you mean? So definitely.
And it's the same that Melanie Shaw. There was grown men crying when I was and I lost it at Melanie Shaw's rally in Rampton, and I broke down there, and they were listening to my story. Like I've given you an insight to it tonight and told you something. You don't tell every single detail, and you haven't got time to talk about 11 years of abuse in various quarters. But when I went to and I was telling the people about it at Ramsden, grown men were crying. That's, you know, affected women, men, and everything on that day. And I met some fantastic people, and those people have spirited me along to do what I do today. And it's like a crest of a wave. You join this wave, and you're with fantastic. When I go, I love it. When I'm out there, the atmosphere, the people, what they're trying to do, and a system that's so corrupt, and the authorities, you know, it's like they're all glued together with super glue. They're stuck so fast in implicit what they do. They're unbreakable, sort of. It's very difficult to beat the system. I always remember when I was in Beecham, they used to say to you, and it was quite daunting, they used to say to you, you know, children are seen and not heard. So you didn't have a voice, and then you was called a liar. If you told anybody, you was punished. And I don't need to tell you, you know it all yourself, you know. But yeah, that little boy still comes out of me. In my 30s, when I met my wife, I used to wake up in the middle of the night thinking I'd seen that shadow of Audrey Wilson over my bedroom, and I'm fighting in my 30s. And then my wife, she calmed me down and settled me down. So by the time I got to my 40s, I was kind of, you know, trying to live a normal life, and then kind of forgetting about it in my 50s. And then in my 60s, the police phoned me up one day and said, this is Surrey Police. We've had a report of child abuse at Beecham Children's Home, and your name was mentioned. Can we come and interview you? And they came all the way from Guildford to my home, interviewed me. Then they wanted me to do a recording of the whole thing, interview, where I had to sit in a settee, like it was almost, it's a harsh thing to say, but it was almost like a rape suite or an offender's suite, where you go, it's like a living room type of, it's done out to make you feel comfortable or relaxed-ish, but there's cameras in the wall watching you from all different angles, and they're recording the whole interview with you, and you're reliving it. And I'm talking about curling into that little ball again, and hiding and doing the same thing in the bathroom as they're hitting me and slapping me, and trying to force carbolic soap in my mouth and eyes, and telling them about all my 7 abuses that I had in Beecham. And so kind of like, you had your abuse as a child, you had to live with the sufferings and what you went through right up into your teenage years, right into your adult age, and then you're still thinking about it in your 30s, and then in your 60s they pick at that septic wound, and then they open old wounds, and yeah, that scab soon turns septic again, and all you're reliving stuff that you've nearly forgotten. And then basically what he done, we started Beecham Survivors Group about 3 years ago, and I was asked by a guy who did start it. It wasn't me that actually started it. Graham Sargent was the guy that started it, and I was asked if I would do the press and stuff like that. And I got to meet John Wedger, and I'd done quite a lot of lives with John Wedger. And then as time went on, I started going out and filming stuff like you do. And that's what I basically do now. I do a lot of filming. I sometimes do the odd interview. I try to get you one day, but you said peace and love, or whatever it was you said. That was about it.
I'll jump on your show anytime. I've jumped on your show before, mind. I have jumped on your show. That was on Wake Up UK. But
yeah, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, what people don't understand is that when you're raped and abused as a child, it follows you all the way through your life. I've had personally 2 breakdowns. I've And you have the little episodes as well where it comes back, it hits you and bites you on your arse, like, do you mean? And then it might be a week before you get over it, like, because everything just comes flooding back, like you said. Like, you have to live every single moment. It affects all your. I mean, every single relationship, it will affect you in some sort of way. I mean, it will affect you.
And that's a really good point, that actually, Phil, because when I started courting girls, because I never had no love and affection as a child, and I used to be infatuated with every girl that I went out with, you know, because they were showing me a little bit of love, or I was getting a cuddle and kissed and being loved and held in their arms, and it's something that you didn't get.
Yeah.
And it was like a loveless childhood. It was like a lost childhood. And you know, I said I did a podcast with a guy called Sean Atwood, and it's reached about 30,000 views. It's on YouTube, but if you type in Sean Atwood Beach Home, and the intro into it, because we do an intro to start it off, and I say, and this is very poignant in what I say, is that when they take your innocence away, it's lost forever. You know, and you never get it back.
And it's hard. I find it really hard to trust people.
Yeah.
I am shy anyway, but I find it really hard to trust anybody that, I mean, I might come across a flamboyant, I should say, I mean, and confident, but I'm not really, not when it comes to the opposite sex and relationships. I'm very shy. It takes a lot for me to trust somebody, and it does affects everything you do, mate.
Yeah.
Everything, you know, mate.
Yeah,
and that's why I do.
Point. Yeah. And I find it very difficult to trust people, and the amount of arguments I've turned around and told managers that have spoke at me and not to me to fuck off. You know, I've walked out of many a job because I've been treated like a piece of shit, and I thought, well, no, I've had them years of being treated like a shit. I'm not going to be treated like it in my adulthood. You speak to me like that, I just fuck off. You know, I'm like that proverbial rat. If you put me in a corner, and you know, I'm going to come and jump at your fucking throat. It made me kind of nasty, but I'm one of them blokes that I will do anything for anybody if I can. But if you cross me, it's a totally different kettle of fish. You get that fucking voice. Well, that you know. And I got asked a question one day, Phil, and it's quite important, really, to say this. And I don't normally say this is either and talk about this. That I was asked once, does being abused make you an abuser? And it made me an abuser in the sense that when I was in Beach Home, towards my later years, the elder boys used to make you fight the other boys, and it was like almost like gladiator sort of thing, where you had to fight them. If you didn't fight them, they beat you. So you got beaten up if you didn't fight them. You didn't want to do it. They was in the same house as you, but it was forced to by the older boys to beat the other kids. And if you didn't beat them, they beat you up. And I felt guilty for that because it felt like that I was kind of like abused and becoming an abuser. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, mate. Certain bits of it I can relate to, but I'm not going to say any more on you. I mean, it'll just start me off, and I'm not going to go down that road at the moment because this is a bit of a show, and I don't want to get upset with it. What I like to do now is bring Stan on, and I'd like to chat about. Now, Stan is from Voice of Wales, and basically, I want to talk about Speaker's Corner and what happened there. Do you know anything about Speaker's Corner?
Yeah, I know. Speaker's Corner used to be, or was it for a while? It became Speaker's Corner was a prominent place where people went and stood on their soapboxes and spilled various religions and so on, and try to save the world or tell you about, you know, there's going to be a revolution in 6 months' time or whatever the case might be. But you know, like socialites and stuff like that. And then for a while it became Speechless Corner because their coppers got really, really heavy-handed and shut it down basically, and people were getting nicked right, left, and centre for going there. The freedom of speech had gone under the COVID-19 regulations that they brought out, and yeah, very dictatorial, very aggressive police. And I've been on some of the rallies where I've seen some really terrible behaviour by the police, and the thing that gets me is that you got we could talk about so many different things that tie in. I know about Speaker's Corner. Yeah, I know about it, and I know about what happened to the girl at Speaker's Corner. And I saw your live the other week where I saw some people that I knew there as well. Hi, Stan.
Stan, do you want to check your sound?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no echo. What happened?
Pardon?
How you doing, Stan?
Yeah. Hi, Alan. That was a very heart-rending story that you've said, and in fact, I'm the exact opposite. My dad had 2 jobs. My mum had 2 jobs, and I actually didn't see them because they were working. But when I remember growing up with my granny, and we had chickens that we fed, and we had an egg round, and that was our pocket money, and we had to clean them up and pick up the eggs and clean the eggs and put new straw down and everything like that, and we had ponies. So my life. The only moan I had was that I didn't see my mum and dad, and they loved me to bits, and so it's almost mirror opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, it's there is no. If you've come from a loving family and you've been in that kind of shield where you've been protected, there is nothing like the opposite.
Well, do you know, Alan? Believe it or not, I mean, this is how either naive or how shielded we were, because I lived in a terrace row. We were the first ones to get a television on the row, and every one of my neighbours happened to be an uncle or an auntie, and of course they weren't. It was because the real uncles and aunties had been killed in the war, but the neighbours were, artificial uncles and aunties, and they were just as loving. So, yeah. If I got lost, or if I was, if I was dirty, I'd have about 10 neighbours all saying, "What are you doing? Get your knees cleaned and tidy yourself up before you go in for dinner." So it was the opposite to you. So
yeah. When you had shorts on, you went wearing with permanent dirty knees.
Yeah, I'm very sorry that you went through that.
There's a lot of stuff that I haven't talked about. A lot of stuff. I mean, I can't talk about 11 years of beach home. So I went in. Worst part about it is the inconsistency with local authorities and the 1,000 councils that are probably out there. Is that there's skeletons in the cupboard with most of them, and my records had me in children's homes before I was even born. I mean, how do you work that out? How inconsistent, how badly they used to keep books and records of children, and how they can redact and alter and change the perception or wording, or it's done to suit the system rather than to suit the individual.
Absolutely, and the shocking thing about this is that my elder brother, who's now dead, he passed away through alcoholism, and he, for the last few years of his life, had carers going in 4 times a day. Wow. And they were telling me, well, it's his choice if he doesn't want a bath. It's his choice if he doesn't want his face cleaning. It's his choice if he doesn't want to eat the food. It's his choice if he doesn't want to take the tablets. And it's his choice if he wants to carry on drinking. And at that stage, I had full power of attorney, the old-fashioned full power of attorney. So not only financial, but also mental. And I had to threaten Manchester City Council that I was prepared to go to court because I am not refusing getting a bath. I am not refusing having a shower or getting my face clean or even changing my clothes or even shaving. So it seems to me that the care system, whether you're young or old, is a failure in this country. Always has been. It's,
yeah, well said.
Provided you get your paperwork in order, then it's thumbs up. But it doesn't matter.
I would use the term as it's probably not fit for purpose.
It
isn't.
It's been all about money. That's all there's ever been.
Yeah, yeah.
And to abuse children, to be honest with you.
And you know what's made it worse? Because nowadays, like you've got everything this country ever owned, everything this country had, is virtually been sold off and is run by private entities and private companies and corporations. And a lot of stuff now, you look at how the prisons are run, some of the security, G4S, Secure Corps, all these companies are part of probably one company, Acro or somewhere like that. Or there's links to them. There's links to them.
I wouldn't be
surprised. A lot of these children's services now are privatised and run by companies that are making billions of pounds out of child abuse.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
You're absolutely right. But to answer the question eventually, Phil, sorry. Speaker's Corner was it's been taken over, hasn't it? It's whilst the police look one way, and the fact that, well, if you look at them, the fact that there's a two-tier policing system now, and it's not the Bobby, it's Dick of the Yard, and Sadiq Khan is the commissioner. But it's in every single police force. It's in every single area. Whether they turn a blind eye to grooming, whether they turn a blind eye to stabbing, you've got the certainly if there was an Olympic sport for stabathons, then London would win, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
And guns and drugs.
Yeah. Well, what I found about Speaker's Corner, it was a lot of the Christians were speaking, the Muslims were jumping in, they were heckling them, making sure they weren't going to get their say and stuff like that. But I was a bit scared, to be honest, Dan. I was watching my back every 2 minutes there. And I didn't have an option. I had to.
Yeah. I mean, there was an atmosphere, agreed. But isn't that just simply appalling where we've lost the ability? I mean, and this has gone about because, of course, you've got the Labour Party that deplatform people, and of course, Black Lives Matter, Extinction Rebellion, the Liberals, even the Conservatives now are deplatforming people. So the ability for the freedom of speech is you can have it provided you toe the line. Well, that's not freedom of speech. That's called that's called the Bolshevik Broadcasting Company, and hence the T-shirt tonight.
Yeah, it's actually quite a good one.
Well, and you can buy them off Voice of Wales.
Here goes the flag.
They're actually quite good today.
but
I found it interesting with Anne-Marie Waters, I did, because
yeah,
she was
yeah.
pretty good. She wasn't afraid to have a go, even though her life has been threatened in the past by the peaceful religion. She was there, and she wasn't afraid to have a go.
No, and even she had the mimic of a gun, you know, pointed at her with her fingers, you know, and this is the thing, you know, where are we going when it is my understanding that it's a Christian has now been stabbed, but prior to her, a Jewish preacher was also stabbed, and it was by the same, or should I say, well, as one of them said to me on the camera, how do you know he was a Muslim? He could have been a Christian dressed up as a Muslim.
No.
So presumably the Jewish preacher that was stabbed, that was a Hasidic Jew, was it, that stabbed him as well? You know, that there seems to be no stopping and no reprisals. Sorry, that's the wrong word. But there seems to be no blocking of one group in society that can do anything almost.
I'm going to just put a quick picture up a minute, if I can. If I can find them. Perhaps I can't. But yeah, carry on, Stan. I'll have a look for the pictures.
Yeah, you know, so and what I saw, now I don't go to Speaker's Corner every week, but I have gone because things have happened in London. I've gone for the last 6 months, probably twice a month. And on every occasion, I have seen the same group of individuals that heckle Christian preachers, that heckle the Jewish preachers. And in fact, they turned on, or tried to, Anne-Marie Waters. So it's the same group. And so I am left with looking at the video that I've seen of a person in Islamic dress, and we've seen a close-up of his face. I'll put it this way, he's not Anglo-Saxon, and he was within the group that I think I have seen several times at Speaker's Corner, and he was there until he seized the moment, and then he rushed out and lunged at Hatun. And yet we've now got 6 or 7 individuals that have not come forward to the police. And so effectively, although the government deny it, we actually have Sharia law on our streets in the United Kingdom, either officially or unofficially. And if it's unofficial, we know that the police are turning a blind eye, because we also know from the footage that within seconds of the guy running away and still in shot, a police car turns up and tries to chase him. And now we've got the bizarre situation where the terrorist, they've given it to an investigator from the terrorist branch to investigate, but it's not a terrorist offence. When is it going to be a terrorist offence? Are the police now saying that on every single occasion, the man who attacks has to be of good mental health? He has to shout the words "Allahu Akbar," or it's not counted, and he has to have a bomb around him, or it's not counted as a terrorist offence. When are we going to grasp this nettle?
she had a lot of courage, mind, coming back the following week, because she's pretty lucky that she didn't. I mean, because he was going for her neck, and she put her hand up, so it come off her arm, and then sliced the top of her head, because she went like that, didn't she, or something like that. So she was pretty lucky. It didn't go into her neck, like.
Well, that is the first line of attack, is the neck.
Yeah, that's it. But she had the courage to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
But the point is that the police appear to to run a two-tier policing system, and in fact, in South Wales, we've now put a freedom of information in because, and this is probably a revelation to your listeners, that they've had a Zoom conference with level 1 officers. In other words, the chief constable, the assistant chief constables, and those underneath them have all had Zoom conferences or the equivalent, whether it's or what's it called on Google now? It's called something else, isn't it? At times, is it something like that? But whatever it is, they've had conferences online where they've had to sit through an ordeal, actually, because we've had several police officers come forward and say that they're sick of this shit, and it was Black Lives Matter. Why they have to police Black Lives Matter differently to any other riot or protest or demonstration. And that is two-tier policing. They need to look at their oaths, and none of them can say that they are upholding the oath of an office of constable. None of them, from the top to the bottom, because they've had these Zoom conferences, and it's to say, be less heavy on Black Lives Matter or their supporters.
Yeah, mate. What I found was when she did leave, it was because I filmed it. I'll put it up back in a bit. Like, I mean, it's only a short video. It was when they were leaving. She had a bit of security around her. She had about 3 football lads, and she had probably about another 12 other people who were walking her to the tube station afterwards. Yeah. Obviously, she had 2 bodyguards who were watching her all the way through. So I don't know who they supplied them, but the football lads were there as well, keeping an eye on her. But what you found is when she started to leave the park, and then you had like 9 or 10 Muslims following. I mean, heckling, you could tell behind, and the police was in the middle at one point, and then as soon as they got to the road and they crossed over, the police decided to just stay there and didn't carry on following her, didn't they? Yeah. What they should have, because it was 2 of them. They weren't prepared to tackle. It was 9 Muslims, like, do you mean? And to make safely to get her onto the train, 15 of Patriots and whatever else, Christians. Like, I think Elvis was one of them as well. not the one that was dead, but you know what I mean. The police just stayed at the park. They didn't come out and follow her to make sure that she got onto that train okay, without those Muslims following her. But well,
first of all, we've got to say, and I'm just guarding your back as well, Phil. We don't know if they are Muslims, but
they were, mate.
Well, let's play it that the people that were following her weren't her friends.
Well, put it this way, mate. They were Muslims because they were actually some of them were trying to debate with the Christians earlier on, and they were the ones who were heckling. So they were, because you can watch my film. The first film was 5 hours long, and the last one was like 1.5 hours long, and you can watch it from start to end. And they were Muslim, no doubt about it, mate.
Yeah, no. And did I don't know if you went up to the Jewish guy that was there. Did you see him? He was surrounded as well.
Yeah. I filmed him for a bit as well. And obviously,
he's actually going through, and I've forgotten the term. He's sort of like an apprentice rabbi, if that's the right term. And I'm sorry if I insult anybody, but they actually debate. So they actually find Speaker's Corner quite good, because they go down and debate the Torah, and they then go back and think, right, what was thrown at me that I was a bit weak on, and then they'll reread their version of their book. So he goes down there to practice, but he was being heckled. You know, there was no doubt about it. They were ganging up on him, as they were with Anne Marie, and as they were with
and Danny Roscoe.
And Danny Roscoe. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make it such a such a place where you feel intimidated that you don't go. And it's not about freedom of speech as well. It's about the freedom to walk in England where the devil you want to walk without being intimidated. And I think it was Mrs. Thatcher that coined the phrase, there should be no no-go areas in this country. And we've got them all over London. We've got them all over London. We're getting them in Cardiff. We've got one or two areas of Swansea that are a bit dicey, you know, and it should not be allowed. It should not be allowed.
It's all over the country, mate. It's all over the country.
Yep.
But the thing is, who in their right mind comes to a debate, because that's what Speaker's Corner is, and brings a knife?
And that's just it. That's the point. You know, there should be no thoughts of any weapons whatsoever going to a debate or Speaker's Corner, or even a park, or even actually in London. You know, you should not be carrying any weapons at all whatsoever. But on the upshot of that, Sadiq Khan needs to get his finger out of his arsehole and start to serve the people of London. And it means getting the guns and the knives and the people that carry them off the streets. And we all know who carries them. And this business of people being up in arms and saying, oh, stop and search is racist. No, it's not. I don't expect to see an 80-year-old woman on a Zimmer frame be equally treated to a stop and search as a person of black or Afro-Caribbean who actually, when you look at the statistics, are more likely to be carrying a gun, a weapon, a knife, or drugs, or all three.
Yeah, what I would say, mind, is yeah, it's a bit difficult because you get called racist for what you just said, but
yeah.
But the way I look at it, if you see a black Caribbean guy, or how can I put it, somebody who's got who's known to the police for being a drug dealer or something like that, then yeah, it's fair game, like, to me.
No, actually, no, you're right. I still maintain that, because remember when I was told, when I was outed by the BBC, that I shouldn't have said that Paul Bolton, if I had a rusty razor blade, he'd be the first person that that should be castrated. That was over. He had on his programme a retired chief constable or deputy chief constable that looked after London. And he said three things. One is that you don't expect, with this climate that we've got now, police officers who've got kids, a mortgage to pay, and and food to put on the table, to stop and search. To go to a stab fest and try and take a knife off somebody. He said it's not going to happen. And then he said that the majority of these people are from fatherless homes of the Afro-Caribbean descent. He said it, not me. So I'm just mimicking what he said. And of course, what Bolton did then is he said, oh, thank you very much. And he went straight to adverts. And it was that bit, because he didn't say what Bolton thought he was going to say, i.e. support Black Lives Matter. they went straight to an advert. And at that point, I vented my anger on Twitter, I think it was.
I agree with you that most of the killings, stabbings, and shootings in London obviously is black and black. Obviously, the police don't want you to, but the police don't want you to know that. That is actually fact. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of it is down to drug dealing and control of a certain area and stuff like that. And I totally agree with you with that. Like, do you know what I mean? Definitely.
Yeah, and that's what this chat was going on about. And he then went on a bit further and said, and it would help the situation if black fathers didn't F off and not acknowledge that they've got children. You know, and that's where Bolton cut the interview. But you can if you type what was the words, right wing fascist bigots, voice of Wales, if you type that in, you'll get the BBC expose on it, I'm sure, and me saying those words to Paul Bolton. Sorry, Adam Bolton. It's Adam Bolton, isn't it? Sorry, beg your pardon.
But Stan, as far as I can remember, you've always had your gangs in big cities. It doesn't matter what they are, but because the way culturally that we've turned or gone in this country, you've got so many, so many different cultures and so many different religions and so many different people from all over the world. You know, you've got your Asians, you've got your Muslims, you've got your Afro-Caribbean, you've got your Italians, you've got your Africans, you've got Somalis, you've got all sorts of groups, your triads, you've got your Russians, and you've got all sorts of people. They're all after a slice of the cake.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what a situation that we've got when Dick of the Yard can say, "Oh no, you can't go to Stretford. That's controlled by the Albanians, and you can't go to Wembley. That's controlled by the Russians, and you can't go to wherever. That's controlled by the whatever it is. What a state we live in when they can actually carve up London by postcode. So not only have you got the intercity tribe, and you've got county lines, and then you've got the drug types on top of that. They all know where they are. Why the bloody hell aren't they on prison ships rotting away?
But Stanley, another point to that as well. I live in Lincolnshire. Now, in Lincoln, it is very bad for Russians and Polish people. There's a street in Lincoln just off of the High Street, and it's called Portland Street. Well, the locals now have renamed it Poland Street, because even when over drugs, drink, or whatever the case might be, there's been 2 murders on each other, on their own type of people in that street. And if you look at Boston in Lincolnshire, it's basically run by Poles, Kosovanians, Romanians, and the amount of shops that are going now in Boston are outweighing, and the indigenous people of the area now are outnumbered.
I absolutely agree with you. Which, all the large cities and all the cities, and people said, oh well, it's okay. It only affects London, Birmingham, and Manchester. It doesn't.
No,
it affects now Cardiff in Wales, Cardiff, Newport, Swansea, Bridgend, the bits in between. We understand that there's now a hotel. Sorry, there's now some council housing blocks. I won't say where, because we're going to do an expose on it, and Phil, you're very close to it. And they are now reserved for migrants. But we've got veterans sleeping on our streets. And, where the hell are we going?
It's strange, Sam, because in saying that, I've been watching the Gurkhas in the pen in Whitehall, and I'm going down there on Saturday to give them my support as a survivor myself and show the respect for the Gurkhas in what they're going to do, in the sacrifice of what they're going to make. But at the end of the day, not so long ago, probably about 8 or 10 days ago, there was a van that pulled up outside Downing Street saying, I don't know if it was for Britain stunt or what it was, with the logo or the slogan they were using. And it was something about the police pay rise as well. And there's guys that are prepared to virtually go on a hunger strike to get their rights for their pension, and the police are worried about a bloody pay rise.
Do you know what? It's not a hunger strike. I have to correct people.
It starts Friday, doesn't it?
This is to death.
Yeah,
Yeah.
When the Gurkha say
whatever it is,
and it is just truly appalling.
yeah,
They've had one settlement, and it was in 1979. Sorry, 1997. And of course, anybody before 1997, they're now reaching retirement age, and they're looking forward to nothing. You know, they're looking forward to pittance. And yet, you speak to any veteran that served with these guys, and they will say that they'd say, "No, you stay back. You make a cup of tea," and they'd fix bayonets and go over the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's that all-out fight that they were prepared to do, with no reservations and no hesitation, and yet for next to a pittance, we are saying no, and yet we can seemingly we can throw money at people in dinghies. And we can throw money at people in dinghies who now sue us because we've falsely imprisoned them for 4 or 5 hours.
we haven't their human rights.
We haven't given medication that they
or their human rights. But when you go up against them with human rights complaint, it doesn't exist.
Yep. And my understanding is, and it's shameful, and I will be bringing it up with the Royal British Legion, that they have been told that they must not intervene. All the charities, actually, all the army charities, armed forces charities, have been told they must not support or intervene or side with the Gurkhas, because if you do, you might lose your funding. And that's the government.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So are you going to go support them on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm going down there, yeah.
So you're going down, Alan?
Yeah, I'm going to go on Saturday. I'm going to meet Sue. Sue's going to go as well. And I'm going to meet up with Sue and probably have a bit of dinner with Sue in the afternoon. And but at the end of the day, we've got to respect their honour. I mean, the history of the Gurkhas, and it's an absolute honour for them to be a part of the British Army. And it's such an honour in their country, and it's a resounding honour for them to serve and to be picked to go into the British Army is seen as something out of the world in their own country.
It is, and you know, one of the chaps there who came out of Warrant Officer Second Class after 21 years. See, this is the other. There's lots of little bits to this. 21 years service. He can't do 22 years because the British Army won't let him. So he never gets a full pension.
Yeah,
He
doesn't get a full redundancy either.
No, and he doesn't get a full redundancy. So if we do equivalents, we're talking of 60 odd pounds a month for a WO2 with the Gurkhas, but 600 odd pounds a month for a WO2 in the British Army. We're talking of a £70,000 severance pay for the WO2 British Army, and perhaps £6,000 severance pay for a Gurkha. And yet, as I say, you know, they take 100% of the risk.
Oh yeah,
and it's very saying that, Stan. When you get politicians turning around and sending our forces across the seas into foreign lands and invading other lands and going into other lands, and they're spilling their blood for this country of what a politician does and says with, for argument's sake, the Tony Blair fiasco and him and Bush with their weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Gurkhas been fighting for our country for 200 odd years now. Do you mean?
Yeah.
They-
I thought
the
it was
other-
123, but is it 200 years? Wow.
it's not far off, is it? All right.
It's 207 years this year
Yeah, that's
Wow.
that they fought for us.
Yeah.
But the irony of all this is that the unknown soldier in Westminster could be a Gurkha.
Yeah.
Because the Gurkhas fought in Mons and they fought along the line in World War One, and their blood mingled with our blood. They are forever brothers, and so that's the irony. The irony is that the warrior that's buried at Westminster Cathedral could actually be a Gurkha.
Then didn't they play a big part in Burma with us? Because we didn't know the territory, whereas they did.
Yeah, no, the Chindits, they were there as well, and in fact, one of the interviews that I did was with this poet that we were redoing the video so that we can get that out, and his uncle Jack fought with the Gurkhas in Burma, and we actually stood with Field Marshal Slim, the statue, just further down, that holds the Burma Star badge there, because that's where they came into their own, the Gurkhas, but for them, we'd have lost out there, absolutely lost.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that goes with
but
every
also-
conflict that we've had overseas, and I think if you name anything that we've been involved with over the years, even the Falklands. When we talk about the Falklands, they were fearless of the Gurkhas.
I was about to mention them there. The only fight that they've not been in was Northern Ireland, because I think the British government feared that there'd be several IRA heads on pikes, so they weren't allowed to go to Ulster. But in fact, in the Falklands, so the story goes, the first detachment of Gurkhas went there, and the BBC announced it that the Gurkhas are here, and the Argentinians surrendered the day after. So that's it. And although I can't mimic the war cry of Nepal, it's the Gurkhas are coming, and the Gurkhas are coming, and they're coming for you, Boris Johnson.
I hope so.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah, all together.
Anyway, I'm going to shoot off now, Phil, but thank you very much for having me on. Very
No
nice
problem,
to see you again, Darren. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
And thank you so much, guys. And
Thanks for coming on,
the
mate.
thing with us, guys, is that we not only campaign for what's happened with our children, but our general knowledge of what's going on in the world and what's around us is as scary as anything that I've ever come across.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you, guys, and I'll
All
see
right.
you soon.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very much,
coming.
indeed, guys.
All right, ta-ra. Yeah, Stan. So, where are you off to Saturday?
We don't know. We might be doing a sting, so I can't say anything.
What do you-
On the other hand, I believe Dan's got a sting.
Yeah, I'm going to Cardiff. I am this week.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to support but it's a static. Do you know anything about these no more lockdown group? Because I don't know a hell of a lot about them.
No, I don't. There's so many splinter groups now, Phil. The only thing you can do is to hopefully go along and then not be shunned by anybody because you've stood along somebody who happens to be, I don't know, alt left or alt right.
It doesn't actually bother me, Stan. I've been on so many demos with the left, the right, black and white, all religions, all ages. It doesn't bother me, mate. So
No, I get that. I get that. But we're fairly our nards are being held to the fire at the moment. So
it's a static. It is. They're on about giving out leaflets and speakers.
yeah. Well, and where's that? That's at the Cardiff Castle, is it?
No, it's at the, I call it the Welsh Assembly. I was told off earlier because I put a little banner up saying it was the Welsh Assembly, but it's the Welsh Parliament. So
no, they can get stuffed. Actually, Phil, you're quite right. It was brought into law as either the Welsh Assembly or the Senedd.
yeah,
It's only the Marxist Drakeford that thinks he's better than anyone else, and he's calling it a parliament. It's not a parliament. You've only got 4 things that you deal with, and you crap at all 4. You know, God help us if you have to go to hospital because you crap. God help us if you've got grandchildren because you can't educate them because you crap. God help us if you need a house because you've given all the, well, you're not allowed to call them migrants now in Wales. What's it called? One umbrella or something or other, where they foisted them all under that. But you know what I mean. And so you're left with, well, what are you left with? Just those bunch of hot-eared wazzocks at the Senedd that we wouldn't miss if they all dropped dead tomorrow.
Yeah, what we the country of sanctuary. That's what it is, isn't it? Wales is now the country of sanctuary, but we're also a communist country, as far as I'm concerned. Like, to me.
Well, we are. It is definitely the Socialist Republic of Wales, and in fact, when we're back on full fire, we will be demonstrating on Commie Thursday the links the links to this lot and why you should never vote Labour or Labour or Commie in your life.
Yeah, it's just gone down so well. It has been for a number of years, but
we've actually got a fantastic quote from Fidel Castro, and it says something along the lines of, "I'm never going to be a dictator, and I'm never going to use a machine gun."
that sounds like Drakeford to me, doesn't it?
Well, it does, doesn't it? What he talks as much as Fidel Castro.
Yeah, he does. And then he's the father of a rapist who's serving 8 years, a violent rape.
Well, you've got to give people a chance. No doubt they'll be. No doubt they'll be putting him forward for a creche or a nursery school for him to go to because he's done his time. You know where I'm going with all this. It's perhaps actually if he says that he's changed sex and he's now going to dress as a woman, that'll tick all the boxes, won't it? He's going to be an ex-offender, somebody interested in kids, and what do they call them now? Something attracted. Minor attracted.
Yeah, but it was a woman. Wasn't it a woman that he violently raped? Well, there was a problem with the woman, wasn't it? Not a problem. She was special needs, was she?
Do you know?
I can't remember the case.
Yeah. Do you know what? I haven't even looked into it. All I know is that there are special rules for the left. Which don't seem to apply to either the police, the judicial system, or the council. And you've got a special get 'em clause if you happen to be either midway or right of politics.
Well, Britford was, I call him Britford. He was actually visiting his son during the lockdown. Like, I mean, it's one law for them and one law for us for everything we do. And this is part This is part of the problem we had during the beginning of the lockdown of Christmas. Can you remember when we had no drink? The pubs are open, but you weren't allowed to serve drink.
Yeah. Well, we've actually called for 23 witnesses at the moment. Dripford is one of them for our coronavirus fines. So we're going to get the court to call him as a defence witness.
How are you going to manage that, mate?
Well, I mean, it'll be contempt of court if he doesn't, won't it?
Well, nobody's going to charge him. Nobody's going to charge him or bring him to court for contempt of court, are they?
Well, I mean, I can just imagine it. You know, you've got so let's have a look. Let's have a look at it. The last 3 reports that I've seen from the count from Drakeford. Drakeford went to to Swansea University, and got some nonsense degree there. Then he did some nonsense social work, so he's never worked in his life. And then all these reports seem to be from people from Swansea University. So there's some kind of how can I put it? What's the word when you're shagging your own parents? Nepotism. That's the one. There seems to be
That's
some
incest.
Well, incest as well. But there's all of this, and it's all linked. So when you call for let's say a report from the NSPCC in Wales, and they write a nice report for Dripford, who's paying the NSPCC in Wales? The Welsh government. So they're hardly going to say, actually, you're crap, are they? You know, those who pay the piper play the tune.
That's right, mate. Definitely. I'm looking forward to going to Cardiff, because I missed the last one because I went to a surprise birthday party, and then I went to the closest one to me. I went to Bristol, didn't I? But I'm looking forward to this one. I don't think there'll be as many people, but
is it Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday, same day as the Gurkhas. Otherwise, I would have gone up and saw the Gurkhas. But obviously, I'm home at the moment.
Well, the Gurkhas are 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So there's no, anybody can pip up there. But and you owe me a beer anyway, so I might come to Cardiff.
I owe you a beer. You owe me a beer for being your technical assistant on Sunday, you little wanker.
No, that was Handy Dan, wasn't it? You were Handy Dan's little elf.
I don't know anybody that doesn't know how to use their phone to get onto Facebook.
Well, you do now.
And Dan didn't make you admin because you didn't have that little shield at the top, so you couldn't do anything, mate. You couldn't get on the live.
No, I've got it now. Back through, is it StreamYard? Yeah,
so you can do it through there.
Yeah, but the issue is, Phil, that every day, and I mean every day, not that I'm at all bothered, but I seem to be getting hundreds of emails, and I've been invited to the black, gay, transsexual pan fucking Zoom conference with, and I've got a ticket for it, or I'm.
Why can you go?
What?
Why can you go? Do a live.
Well, actually, when the general election, when the election was on, I think I lasted 2.5 minutes with Extinction Rebellion, because the first thing I said to them was, "Why aren't you protesting in China? And if you do want depopulation, can I suggest that you do it from China first, followed by Pakistan and India, because they're the biggest polluters?" Bop.
Well, I've already decided, Stan, right? If I ever get arrested on a protest, I'm actually going to identify as a woman as soon as I get arrested.
I'm going to really fuck them up. I'm going to identify as a woman, Muslim, apostate, who's claustrophobic, who also suffers from Tourette's when stressed.
I'm not looking forward. Well, I was arrested. Well, like I said, twice in 1 hour last year, and released on both times. But yeah, I'm sure I'll be up for arrest soon, especially if you keep on talking like you do sometimes on my live, mate.
Thanks, mate. Well, I'll come and visit you.
Yeah.
The point is that we've now got we've now got how did Steve say it? We've now got files that are as bad as criminal records. If people say that what you're saying is a hate crime to them, so it's recorded, but you don't know about it.
Yeah.
So if ever there's a toilet paper shortage, I'm going to ask for my record. Because there'll be about 20 trees.
You're mad, mate. You're bonkers. So you visited the Gurkhas on the weekend, then?
Yeah. On Saturday and Sunday, actually, I went up. I interviewed several people there, but I already know the story. I mean, I've never been attached to a Gurkha unit, but I've come across both the families and individuals, and actually at Warminster, when I was a housing manager there, I housed quite a lot of them, and they are very, very nice. The only complaints we ever got, believe it or not, and it's going to make you laugh, is that they used to smuggle cockerels and hens in. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're
I was listening to Dion, Joe Drayson's other half's live last week,
yeah.
and he said the only problem with the Gurkhas, if you say 1 o'clock, they might turn up at 3. They might be ready to roll at 3 because they're quite late. But as you went there last Saturday, do you think it was not enough support for them? Because I was told it was only a certain amount of veterans turned up to support them, but it was like 200 to 300 of the Gurkhas were there, and there wasn't very many civilians. 7 bikes or something from Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, we all have, you know, I mean, you are now going to Cardiff, but you had the choice of going to Cardiff or, and that's the issue with these things. I mean, Clive and Dave kicked off. I invited them back to the Union Jack Club, and whilst I was changing my T-shirt, they kicked off in the lounge downstairs and told everybody just what they thought. But if you think about Marble Arch and the road going north there, you know, it's gone straight out of my head. Oh God, whatever that road is, you get people that live around Marble Arch but never go to Marble Arch. They live entirely in 500 meters of where they live. And it's the same with London, you know. He kicked off at the Union Jack, but people use the Union Jack as a base because they could be going to, and there was a load of Navy guys in, they'd gone to a reunion on HMS Belfast. And so their main focus there was HMS Belfast and getting drunk, you know, and, you know, what is your cause might not be my cause. So it would have been nice to see more numbers. Absolutely. And it would have been nice for civilians to come across and actually say, what's all this about? But they don't, you know, and that's the way it goes. Hopefully the message goes out, and on the 28th, I think it is, Rolling Thunder's going down to London, and it'll be a big affair.
Yeah, I've been putting the posters out for Rolling Thunder, for the PDSD camp, because they've done a couple of posters for Saturday as well. Kerry Ann, who's the admin on there, she's done the posters. So I'll just keep on pushing them out, mate.
Yeah, yeah. I had the privilege of doing a remembrance 100th anniversary of a young man who was killed in the Royal Flying Corps, and it was just weeks before the end of the war, you know. And I put out 2 Rolling Thunder, and you know what? They all turned up. It was a great privilege to have them in church, but they could equally have had another event, and I'd have had none, and somebody else would have had them. So it's just pot luck. But the Gurkhas have a good cause, and they've got good hearts, and everybody, civilian and veterans and serving, should support their cause.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to support Cardiff this time.
Yeah.
The following Saturday, I haven't decided where I'm going yet. It's either going to be Newcastle, Dudley, or Nottingham. I'm going to leave it up to the general public to choose for me.
Well, well, out of those 3, I would go to Nottingham, and I would go to the oldest pub in England, which is called the Trip to Jerusalem. And Phil, it's no use you sitting on it, but there's a stool in there, and if you sit on it, you get pregnant. But perhaps Dan has.
Yeah, definitely. I am going to let everybody choose where I go on the 14th. So, but I want to try and get down to London sometime next week, and I do, because my mate actually went down there on Monday. He did an interview there, Mark O'Sullivan, and they had a few supporters there. They had a few supporters yesterday as well. So every single day there are people going there to support them. Yeah. So I think the main hunger strike starts on Friday. They're taking it in turns at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then they're on a hunger strike then because they're fasting now.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. But you know, I get awfully upset because when they say they're going to do something, Phil, they do it. You know, and
they've done it before.
The knuckle. Well, they did it before, and they got the document that they were wanting, and it's now 13 years later, and that document remains unsigned. It's a 60-page document. It was with the MOD. It's now over with Boris, and it remains unsigned. So in the intervening years, you could have literally read 1 line a week and finished it several years ago. You know, that's how appalling this is. And at the time it was signed, there was something like 50,000 Gurkhas, and now it's down to 15. So are we actually going to treat them off, you know, as bad as it sounds? We're going to wait till every single one of them dies, and then we'll sign the damn treaty. Is that how ludicrous this is? Or should we be pragmatic about this and say, right, well, we've got a foreign aid budget, and we'll spend that money, because obviously we can't even cut 0.8 we've cut. We can't even cut that without whinging and moaning.
No, we cut it. It was 0.7, and then we cut it down to 0.5. So basically, it went from 15 billion to 10 billion pounds.
Yeah. So let's use a bit of that money. And when I say a bit, we are actually talking of millions and not billions. That's how ludicrous it is, you know. And yet we can spend money on dinghies are us, without let or hindrance. We can stick them up in 5-star hotels, pay off the court charges. We can pay for lost, injuries and hurt feelings. We can do all sorts of things for people that don't give a shit about our country. And the Gurkhas have given blood. They've given more than that. They've given blood. And yet it's like being in a Turkish bazaar. We're haggling, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to wrap it up now. An hour and 49 49 minutes. But you haven't been too bad because you've only been on here like an hour. So it's not so bad. Like, if John Lawrence was on here, we'd be going 2.5 hours, to be honest with you, mate.
Well, I mean, you know, I was. It was very, very informative what Alan said, you know, and I'm just blessed with, you know, if my only moan was I didn't see my mum and dad enough. But I know the reasons why, because they were wanting to make sure that we had 2 holidays a year and that we went away and that we had horses and chickens. If that's my only moan, then I think I did well. And I only, you know, I tip my hat off to you and Alan on that score. But to go back to the very beginning, you should not feel afraid to walk anywhere in the United Kingdom, in cranky Scotland, Dripford's Wales, or Boris's England. We have a right to walk anywhere where we want, at any time we want, at any place we want, and the police can we can tell the police to bog off, you know, and that's what they should be doing to a certain group of individuals who make you feel edgy, make me feel edgy, and berate and in some instances use weapons at a debating society.
Yeah, it's definitely bang out of order. Yes, Tommy, Tommy Trump, I'll see you Saturday. I don't know about a raincoat. Oh, I'm gonna have to get an umbrella for my camera, won't I? My phone. So you did say you're going up to London, are you? Or you got?
No,
I didn't.
You haven't decided yet?
No, we're going on manoeuvres, I said.
Are you waiting for to see if Dripford's in his house so we can all go and take another visit? Because
no,
last one, brilliant.
I waited for Dan to just take the drugs, and then I come in with a mask and surgical gloves.
Don't lower the tone now, Stan, please. Don't lower the tone. Do they? Yeah. I thought. I didn't know when he went to Dripford's house.
Yeah.
I thought you might have went around the other side, mate, around the back lane, because that's where Dripford's actually staying.
Yeah.
He says is his garden shed, but it's not. It's like a flat on top of a garage at the bottom of his garden. Like he told everybody it was a shed, but it's not.
Do you know what? And this is just between me, you, and whoever's listening. Hello, South Wales Police. We now need to stop going to Cardiff. We now need to stop going to London. And what we need to do is to turn up at the 20-odd ministers' houses in their leafy Surrey houses or Dripford's West Wales house and pitch up on the cricket pitch and say, we're staying here, and it'll be the peer pressure of the villages and the villagers that they live in. And also the police are going to go scatty because they can secure one area, i.e. Downing Street. They can secure 2 areas. They can secure 3 areas. They've got a well organized machine for London. But you take that out and you then start to demonstrate outside these ministers' houses or schools, and then you have certainly shoved it right up them.
I think, right, if we had 2 million on street like we did in London, well, what we do is we hit all their houses, 651 ministers, MPs, all the ones in Scotland, and our AMs, then game over. As simple as that, mate.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you saw actually by turning outside Dripford, immediately the Welsh Conservatives, or should I say the whipping dogs of the Labour Party, automatically said, "Oh no, you mustn't do that. He's got his own private life. You shouldn't do that." Well, we're not going to. We shouldn't be turning up outside empty buildings, i.e., Parliament, or the House of Lords or the Senedd, Mr. Dripford, or whatever Widow Cranky says is their parliament. I think theirs is a parliament, isn't it?
Yeah, this is
up
a
in
problem.
Scotland. Yeah, you know, you turn up outside their houses, you cause havoc outside their houses, so that the neighbours give them havoc.
Definitely,
And
mate.
if you do that every week, they'll get rather cheesed off. I'll tell you that now.
And all of us who have voted or have thought about voting, we all know where our politicians live. Or another one I'd like to do is on a Friday when they have their surgeries, when they come back to work, is go and hit all their surgeries. Because I did that during the Brexit. When we weren't getting Brexit, I hit my my politician's surgery. Didn't I?
Yeah. Well,
answers.
The problem is that I haven't got strong enough sunglasses from the death stare of Geraint Davis. You know.
But I know where my MP lives. So organising a demonstration outside his house, it wouldn't be a problem, like, do you know?
No, exactly, and that's it. You know, like I say, the neighbours' pressure on them to say do something about the Gurkhas. This once it starts to, and the problem is, you can get 2 million people in London. You can get 3 million people in London. Do Sky, BBC, or ITV cover it? No. They only cover the arrests.
It's only the likes of you and me who covers it, and that's it.
Exactly.
Independence, and that's it. The only people who cover it, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a good idea. Like you said, the cricket grounds as well.
Well, funny enough, Michael Gove's constituency, where he lives, the cricket ground is actually called the Memorial Ground. So it would be excellent if a load of Gurkhas turned up there and started camping on that one for a week, wouldn't it? cooking the odd goat in the middle of the cricket pitch.
It'd be funny, wouldn't it? With a couple of cockerels.
Well, in fact, in Brecon, you know, they paid the farmers in case any of the sheep went, because you'd hear in the middle of the night, you bear, 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 and then you'd smell this goat curry come wafting down the valley.
Oh, mad, mate. Yeah, Dan, Stan. I called you Dan then.
Yeah, no, I'm the handsome yet modest one.
Yeah, you're the one not with the kidney problems. Yeah, thanks for coming on, mate. I very much appreciate it.
Excellent. And these T-shirts are £8 and available from all good shops.
Yeah, you mean a Voice of Wales shop?
Hey! Cheers, Phil.
I got a Children's Matter one on, I have.
Where's that from? Is that from PC?
No, it's from Katie. She was, well, she's one of the founders, same as the Blairs, of Children's Matter. So
Right.
I had that offer. I have got my my live news and demo news T-shirts as well. But yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, my hoodie does a lot better than that, mate. All right, Stan. I might see you on the weekend. I might not, but
okay. Always a pleasure coming on your show, Phil, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye. Bye. Yeah, folks. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this show up now. Thanks to my two guests, Stan and Alan. They were brilliant, excellent. Some moving stories there with Alan as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a video of what the police actually did where Hatton was when she was leaving Speaker's Corner and when we were followed. I'm going to show that. It's only a short clip, but that I'll play that to finish off the show. All have a good night. Thank you to my mods for doing my modding, and also to Katie and to Stacey for looking after me Friday and Saturday in Manchester before I went to London on Sunday. Awesome, great people. And good night. And I'll see you next week at 8 o'clock. And if you can get to Cardiff, get to Cardiff. Let's see if it'll play. I hope it will. So, yeah, they're leaving now. So, obviously got a bit of a security detail. A couple of the football lads and that. They're going to walk her to the station, make sure she gets on the train. So, obviously, she got stabbed last week, if you don't know the story, in her arm, and sliced a little bit top of her head as well. So, so the Muslims are following her now. Yeah, they're following her. Idiots. So, see, folks. Right. They're going to follow it at the train station now, aren't they? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow them. See if they do follow. Please don't argue with my lies. Please don't argue with my lies.